Welcome back to Hoosier Sports Night. Casey Richards here, and I am now joined by Brandon Walker-Roby, an Indiana wide receiver from 2005 to 2008, and of course, a member of that 2007 Insight Bowl team. Brandon, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me, Casey. Definitely.
So as we mentioned earlier, Indiana hung on for a 23-19 victory over Western Michigan over the weekend. Positive sign for the Hoosiers is that they got the ground game going. Demetrius McCray and Mitchell Evans both had good days on the ground. Can you just talk about that a little bit and how Indiana's going to have to run the ball well if they're going to win?
I think this was a perfect example of what Indiana needs to win. The run game was perfect this week. To me, Demetrius McCray is a true running back. You know, something that we've been lacking for years since, back in 2005 when we had Chris Taylor. I think Demetrius McCray is going to bring a lot to this team as long as they keep putting the ball in his hands. And as far as Mitchell Evans, he's going to be a great asset to the team, especially with Kellen Lewis being gone. You're going to need that quarterback who can kind of scramble around and throw the ball. Ben Chappell really can't do that. You put Mitchell Evans in there to do that, it's a wrap. You're good.
Yeah, Mitchell had to actually play some time at quarterback last year with so many injuries. So that's a position he's used to. And I believe he played quarterback in high school too, correct?
Yeah, Mitchell Evans, he's an athlete. He's been all over the field, so he's a great athlete.
All right, but it was in the Indiana defense who made the key stand late in the ballgame as Western Michigan looked like they were going to take the lead. However, Greg Middleton forced a fumble that was recovered by Justin Carrington. And Brandon, that's 2 games in a row now where the defense has forced 2 fumbles down towards their own end zone.
Yeah, one thing Coach Lynch always stresses is just play the next play. And I feel like the defense did a great job of doing that. The Western Michigan, when they were on the 10-yard line going in, looked like they were going to score and win. And, the Hoosiers was going to come out 1-1. But the defense just did a great job of playing the next play, not worrying about what the fans were thinking, what anybody else was thinking. They just stuck together and played, and they did an excellent job.
Now, perhaps the main reason why the Hoosiers had their backs against the wall there was because of penalties. Just on that drive alone, the Indiana defense had committed 4 penalties, and not just little ones. They were personal foul penalties, too. They helped Western Michigan drive right down the field. I believe they had 13 penalties overall. So when you look back at the game, the running game was good, the defense was good, but the penalties is definitely something that's got to be fixed.
Yeah, and in the game of football, penalties are going to happen. You're going to have, your inverted face mask, your holding in the trenches, pass interference, that's going to happen. But that just comes from the players actually playing hard. Now, what the coach really stresses that really bugs them is those pre-snap penalties. When the receivers jump off sides, your defensive linemen, O-linemen jump off sides. That's what the coaches really want to focus on this week. From what I hear, they're going to take the whole team in the indoor facility, the Mellencamp facility, and kind of turn the music up loud and kind of, get the team used to being in this new environment at Akron. They just had a new stadium built. So this is going to kind of help the offense and defense get used to that loud music and kind of focus on those pre-snap penalties that the coach stresses.
Yeah, I think I saw Coach Lynch also was actually going to bring in referees to practice too to kind of, remind the players that you can't do it in practice, you can't do it in the games either. And then just to wrap things up, you kind of mentioned it, but the first road game of the season at Akron, another MAC opponent, but this is their first. They opened the stadium last week against a football championship subdivision team, but they're got to be jacked up to welcome a Big Ten team to their new place.
Yeah, man, Akron's going to be very excited to bring Indiana in. Like I said, they have a new stadium, new fans, new surround system. Everything's going to look great. I really think it's going to be a tough game for the Hoosiers, but I think they'll pull it out. All
right, well, thanks a lot, Brandon. We'll see him in the coming weeks. But there was lots of other college football action over the weekend. That's why we welcome in Ben Heisler for the Rundown.
Welcome, folks, into the Rundown. I'm your host, Ben Heisler, as we now take this opportunity to break down the biggest Big Ten game of the week. Now, the number 18th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish came into Michigan Stadium last week to take on the Wolverines. Both teams 1-0, looking for that big statement win. Who would take home the crown? Here come the Maize and Blue looking to get revenge on the Irish who thumped them last year in South Bend. We pick it up in the first quarter, Michigan up 7-3. Irish kicking off to Darryl Stoneham, and Stoneham, well, frankly, just stones him. Get on your high horse, young man, and he takes it all the way to the big house for a touchdown. Touchdown, Michigan, a 94-yarder for Stoneham to make it 14-3 Big Blue. Now moving on to the third quarter, Irish back on top 20-17. Jimmy Clausen hands it off to Jonas Gray, who coughs it up. Mitch Jonas Mouton recovery for the Wolverines, and on the next Michigan possession, freshman Tate Forcier finding Kevin Koger for the 3-yard touchdown. Michigan now up 23-20. Moving on to the fourth quarter, Tate Forcier under center, off and running, battling off the Fighting Leprechauns for a 31-yard touchdown run. That is all the way to the end zone, 30-20 Michigan. Forcier on the day, 23 for 33, 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. 5 minutes later, Clausen slings it to crispy, crunchy Golden Tate. 21 yards, Irish down just 5 for Jimmy Clausen. It's his 3rd touchdown pass of the game. But on the next Michigan possession, things going well for the Irish. Forcier picked by Kyle McCarthy. McCarthy running steady until right around now he decides to just sort of waggle around, and McCarthy go down, still won't go down, finally is brought down about at the 35-yard line. That was Forcier's one and only pick of the ballgame. A few minutes later, Armando Allen Jr., untouched. He sees a pot of gold 8 yards away. Touchdown Notre Dame. They're up 32-31, and they would need a 2-point conversion to make it within a field goal for the game. So, on that 2-point conversion, Clausen to Allen on a Statue of Liberty play. Oh, shades of Boise State. Are you kidding? Irish are now up 34-31. So what would Tate Forcier do with 30 seconds left? Well, he would make things happen. That next play to Lateral Savoy for 18 yards. First and goal. Forcier getting out of the pocket, finds Savoy for the touchdown. No, you blew it right through the hands, but Forcier is going to have to stay calm, cool, and collected like a cucumber. And what does he do? He finds Greg Matthews for the go-ahead 5-yard touchdown score. Michigan wins this one 38-34 over the number 18th ranked Irish. The coach and the quarterback share a beautiful moment together afterwards. What a game. 38-34 Michigan. So congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines, who now cracked the top 25 poll. They're now the number 25 ranked team in the country. A couple games to watch out for. I like Minnesota against Cal. That game going to be played in Minnesota. I think number 8 Cal is going to give them a real tough game and just come out on top. Also, another good one to watch for. Iowa taking on Arizona, both teams 2-0. I think the Hawkeyes are going to squeak through and win that one. And my upset special of the week, sorry Northwestern fans, but the Cats go down to the Syracuse Orange. The Syracuse Orange looking for their first victory of the season at 0-2. Greg Paulus at quarterback. Unfortunately, it's going to come this week. I'm Ben Heisler, and that, my friends, was The Rundown.